The colony world of Arvin was quiet compared to the busy centers of human civilization. It was not rich in resources nor famous for culture. Most travelers described it as a peaceful place where trade stations hummed with the sound of machinery and where both humans and visiting species could walk without fear of conflict. On this particular day, the market district of Arvin's main city was alive with voices. Merchants shouted offers. Children ran between the stalls. Ships landed and lifted again from the port towers. Among the crowd was a human family who had come to trade goods from their farm. The youngest member of that family was a child named Lien. Lien was small and curious. His eyes followed every light in the sky. He had a habit of stepping away from his parents whenever something new caught his attention. Arvin's market was built at the base of a tall structure known as the Tower Hall. It was not a true tower but a great pillar of stone and steel carved into the mountain when settlers first arrived. Inside it were chambers for trade councils and records of the colony's history. The ground around it often trembled because the mountain was not entirely stable. Small quakes had shaken the city before, but most were gentle and soon forgotten. That day, the quake was not gentle. The first sign was a deep rumble beneath the ground. Stalls rattled and lights swung from their wires. Voices rose in alarm as cracks formed across the stone streets. The quake struck harder and the base of the tower hall groaned like a wounded beast. Merchants dropped their goods. Parents called for their children. The sky seemed to shiver as dust clouds rose around the market. Lien had wandered closer to the tower hall just before the quake began. His small hands had touched the smooth carvings on its walls. When the ground shook, he stumbled and fell near the base of the structure. His parents turned too late. Shouts echoed through the crowd. Then with a sound like thunder, a section of the tower hall collapsed. Stone blocks and beams crashed down around the boy. Most people fled, but not all. A group of Kara had been standing near the hall. The Kara were not strong compared to humans. They were slender beings with pale skin marked by soft patterns of blue. Their voices were usually quiet, and they rarely spoke to strangers. Many traders dismissed them as timid. But when the wall began to fall, 3 Kara ran forward without hesitation. The Kara wrapped their thin arms around the child and formed a circle with their bodies. They pressed close together as fragments of the tower hall rained down. Dust filled the air and the roar of falling stone drowned every voice. Inside that circle, Lien could not see much. He heard strange words spoken in the Kara tongue. He felt the weight of stone strike the backs of those who shielded him. He smelled the bitter dust. He trembled but he was not crushed. Every blow that might have ended his life was taken by those who held their ground. When the quake ended, silence followed. The air was thick with dust. People coughed and called for help. Slowly, rescuers came forward. Humans rushed with tools to lift the broken stones. Beams were cut away. Smoke from shattered lamps burned their eyes. After long minutes of struggle, they uncovered the small circle at the center of the wreckage. There stood the Kara, bodies bruised and cloaks torn. They were weak from the strain, but they had not moved from their place around the child. Lien sat in the middle, shaken but alive. His parents rushed to him, tears streaking their faces. They pulled him close, but even as they embraced him, their eyes looked with awe at the aliens who had chosen to protect their son. Word of the event spread faster than fire in dry grass. Every witness told the story. Merchants repeated it to crews leaving the port. Pilots carried it across the stars. Reports reached distant stations before the dust had settled on Arvin itself. People marveled that the quiet Kara, often ignored in councils and trade meetings, had risked their own lives for a human child they had never known. Later that evening, the Kara were brought to the healing chambers of the colony. Human doctors treated their injuries. None were fatal, but all three bore deep cuts and bruises that would take weeks to heal. Lian's parents visited them often. The boy would stand at the bedside holding the Kara's hands with the trust only a child could give. Reporters came to the colony. They recorded the ruined tower hall. They interviewed witnesses. They captured images of the Kara who had shielded the boy. Across human space, people sat before screens and watched. Soldiers on distant patrols spoke of the story. Farmers on quiet worlds repeated it at night around their tables. For once, the news was not about conflict or rivalry. It was about courage that came from an unexpected place. The Kara themselves gave no speeches. When asked why they had acted, one simply replied in soft words that every child carried the same light of life, and no light should be allowed to fade if there was a chance to guard it. That sentence was repeated in every language of humanity within a single week. On Earth, the story reached the council chambers. Leaders listened as the report was read. They saw images of the Kara standing in the wreckage. They heard the child's voice telling how the aliens had held him safe. Many leaders sat in silence for a long time afterward. Humanity was a species known for pride and for the fierce protection of its young. To learn that another race had stood as a shield for a human child touched them deeply. One council member said that if strangers could guard one child at such risk, then humanity could do no less for those strangers in return. Others agreed. The first discussions began about how to respond. Some thought words of thanks would be enough. Others demanded more. The debate would grow in the days to come, but the seed had already been planted. Meanwhile, in the colony of Arvin, Lian recovered quickly. Children are quick to laugh again even after fear. Yet he never forgot the embrace of the Kara. He would often draw pictures of them with simple crayons, showing three tall figures with arms spread wide around a small human boy. His drawings were pinned to the walls of the healing chambers where the Kara rested. Nurses who passed by would pause and smile. The people of Arvin treated the Kara with new respect. Shops that once ignored them now offered goods freely. Children followed them in the streets, not with mocking voices but with curious questions. The Kara accepted this attention quietly. They never asked for reward. Their nature was still gentle and reserved. Yet everyone who saw them remembered the moment when they had proven that gentleness could be stronger than stone. Night fell on Arvin, and the stars glowed over the quiet colony. Ships lifted and vanished into the sky. In one small house near the market, Lian slept peacefully at last. His parents kept watch beside him, thankful that he still breathed, thankful that strangers had made that possible. Far away, in chambers of power, humanity was preparing to make a choice that would echo across the galaxy. That choice would not be born from strategy or conquest. It would be born from the moment when three quiet aliens had wrapped their arms around a single human child and said, with their actions if not their words, that his life mattered as much as their own. And in that moment, history began to change. Sunlight fell across the council chamber on Earth. High ceilings, long rows of seats, and screens that showed faces from distant star systems filled the space. Representatives of many human nations gathered. Some wore simple uniforms. Others wore suits. Their voices were hushed but urgent. At the center of the room, a large round table held the Holocene seal, the symbol of the Earth Council. It glowed softly in the light. Counselor Myra stood at a podium beside the seal. She had seen the reports from Arvin. She held a small data pad in her hand. Myra cleared her throat and raised her voice so all could hear. She described the event, the quake, the collapse of Tower Hall, the three Kara who had protected the human child named Lien. She described how the child was saved. She described how humans everywhere had been moved by that act. Some representatives nodded quietly. Others exchanged worried looks. A voice from the back rose. Councillor Wren of the Northern Alliance asked, "Is this story confirmed? Could it be propaganda? We have seen false reports before." Myra shook her head. Evidence from multiple sources confirmed it. Images from Arvin's cameras, interviews with merchants, statements from the Kara themselves. All told the same thing. A pause. The murmurs in the chamber grew. Some said that if this act were true, it changed how humans saw the Kara. Many always saw the Kara as weak, shy, maybe not strong enough to face the galaxy with confidence. Another voice spoke, Councillor Saul of the Eastern Territories. He said, "If we treat the Kara differently now, will other species see that as weakness? Will they try to take our side? Or test us?" Myra replied, "We are not weak when we choose compassion." The Kara did not ask for reward. They did what they believed was right. If kindness becomes known across the stars, humans will gain respect. Not fear. Some councillors murmured. One leaned over to another and whispered. Falls of light moved across the chamber as the screens behind Myra showed interviews of ordinary humans speaking about what they saw. A farmer from a remote farm, a child in a school, a trader docking at a spaceport. All spoke the same message. The world had watched. Many were inspired. All felt something shift. Outside the chamber, in the streets of many human cities, people gathered around public screens. They stood in squares. They held candles. They flew banners that read, "Life matters. We stand together." Earth's news channels replayed the images of the Kara, bloodied but unbowed. Human leaders gave statements of thanks. Religious leaders invoked ideas of duty, protection, compassion. Scholars wrote essays about what this meant. Back in the council chamber, a group of councillors proposed a motion: Earth should declare the species of the Kara under protection. That any harm done to the Kara would be treated as harm done to humanity. That motion shocked many. It was bold. Some councillors stood up with concern. Councillor Lena of the Western Seas said, "Protection of an alien species. That is illegal first. Our treaties do not cover that. We have no plan for enforcing such protection. We risk diplomatic conflict." Councillor Omar of the Solar Union added, "What if other empires see this as a claim on Kara worlds? Will they accept that humans speak for the Kara? The Kara must have their right to speak for themselves." They called for a Kara representative to speak. A delicate moment followed. From a projection screen a Kara elder appeared. She was tall, her pale skin patterned in soft blue. Her voice was low. Elder Nutel said, "We did not act for favor or because we knew humans well. We acted because life is sacred. Child or adult, human or Kara, life is sacred. But we speak now so that our own voice is heard. We do not ask for ownership or command. We ask only to stand as equals." Her calm words held great weight. The council fell silent. Myra nodded and said, "If we declare protection, we will partner with the Kara. They will keep autonomy. We will pledge not to dominate. We will defend. We will stand with them." Some councillors felt relief. Others felt fear. Councillor Wren spoke again and asked, "What cost will this bring?" Will we send ships? Will we use military force? What if war comes to Kara space because of this? Counselor Saul answered, if we promise protection, we must be ready to back it up. If humans speak for the Kara, enemies may test us. They may think we bluff. But we will not. We must prepare. That preparation meant resources. Diplomats, fleets, treaties. Earth's defense forces were strong. Humans had warships, patrols, colonies. Many planets. Many alliances. But they had never declared protection over an entire species outside their species. Some on Earth protested. They said humans should focus on human problems. Poverty. Climate. Disease. Why spend on protection millions of light years away? Others said this act would unify humanity. It would show a high moral standard. It would shift people from fear to trust. Day after day debates continued. The council met in public. Televised. Media commentators, citizens, even school children wrote letters, poems, songs. Eventually, a vote was called. The motion, Earth declares the Kara species under human protection. Votes were counted. Some nations abstained. Some voted against. But the motion passed with a strong majority. When the result came in, the chamber burst in quiet applause. Myra's eyes were wet. Counselor Lena sighed with tension but nodded. Elder Newtell bowed her head quietly. The official declaration was written. It demanded peace for the Kara. It demanded that any attack on Kara worlds be considered as attack on humanity. It pledged to defend them. Earth prepared to send envoys to Kara colonies. Military scouts moved to monitor border zones. Scientists and engineers offered help to rebuild damaged Kara towns. Trade agreements were discussed so that Kara goods would be protected. On Arvin, news of Earth's decision reached healing chambers where the three Kara who had saved Lian rested. Their wounds were still fresh in many places. But their spirits lifted knowing that their race was honored and protected. Lian's parents wrote letters to the Kara. They thanked them again. They traveled to speak in gatherings. They told their story. The Kara listened. The people listened. But across the galaxy some noticed. Powers beyond humanity began to whisper. Some said that Earth had overstepped its place. Some saw a threat in the protection pledge. For them the Kara were assets. Others said Earth had shown its strength, its unity. Late at night, Myra stood alone in her office. She looked at stars through a window. She held the Holocene seal's replica in her hand. She remembered the faces at Arvin. She remembered Lian's small hand in the hands of the Kara. She said quietly to herself, "We have chosen our path." She knew danger would follow. She knew not all would approve. But she also believed that compassion made humans strong. And that strength would guide them in the days to come. Ships moved in the silent dark of space. Some carried trade. Some carried weapons. Many now traveled close to the border of Kara space. The humans had made their declaration. They had promised to protect the Kara. But promises always bring watchers. On the world of Kara Set, a quiet colony of the Kara people, life had once been slow and gentle. Homes were carved into hills. Fields stretched under silver skies. The Kara sang as they worked. Their voices were soft, rising and falling like waves. Now, though, new shadows crossed their skies. Distant fleets had begun to appear. The humans had kept their word quickly. Patrol ships of Earth Defense Command orbited the colony. Long and silver, Armed with energy batteries, they watched over the Kara settlements. Crews of men and women kept their eyes on screens, tracking every signal. They were not there to rule. They were there to shield. Captain Darren commanded one such patrol ship, the Sentinel. He stood on the bridge with his hands behind his back. His crew worked calmly, though the air carried tension. Reports had come in that rival powers had sent scouts near Karaset. Darren's orders were clear. No harm must come to the Kara. He spoke softly to his officers. Remember, they saved one of our children. That means every child here is now under us. We hold the line. Far away, in another system, leaders of the Threx Dominion gathered in their own council halls. The Threx were known for strength and conquest. Their worlds stretched across many sectors. They saw the Kara as weak, and for years they had eyed Kara space as land to expand into. When Earth made its declaration, the Threx saw a barrier raised in front of them. A Threx warlord pounded his claw against a table of stone. Humans block us. They think to play guardians of the galaxy. If they succeed, others may follow them. If they fail, their weakness will be shown. Either way, the balance has shifted. Some Threx advised caution. Others called for a test. They would probe the new human resolve. Small raids, quick strikes. Nothing too open, but enough to see if Earth's promise was empty. Back on Earth, the Council heard of these movements. Counselor Myra stood again before her peers. She read reports of strange signals near Kara space. She warned that rival fleets were testing human lines. She argued for unity. If our promise falters even once, no one will believe us again. We must not only speak protection, we must live it. Citizens across human worlds followed every development. News screens lit up with maps of space showing red markers of rival ships near Kara colonies. Analysts explained the risks. Some citizens were afraid war was coming. Others said war was already here, waiting. On Arvin, Leanne's family still lived their quiet lives. But reporters often visited them, asking for stories of the quake, the collapse, the moment the Kara had saved their son. Leanne himself grew shy with so much attention. He drew less now, spoke less, but when asked he still said the same thing. They saved me. They were kind. His words, though simple, carried far. They reminded people what all the conflict was about. In Karaset, the Kara elders gathered with human envoys. They met in a hall of stone shaped like a circle. Elder Nutel sat across from Captain Darren and two Earth diplomats. She said, "We hear the engines of ships in our skies. We see weapons. We do not wish for war to come to us. But we know war may come anyway. If it does, we will stand with you." One diplomat replied, "You will not stand alone. Earth has sworn it. We will hold the shield around your people. That is our oath." The elder bowed her head. The meeting ended in silence, but also in trust. Meanwhile, in deep space, a test came. A Threx raider ship darted across the border. Its engines burned bright. It aimed at an unmanned Kara mining station on a moon. The raider fired. The station shook. Within minutes, Captain Darren's patrol ship moved in. "Target in sight," called an officer. Darren ordered no warning shots. Instead, the Sentinel slid between the raider and the moon. Shields flared blue. The enemy fire struck harmlessly against human armor. "Send message," Darren commanded. His words carried to the Threx ship. "This colony is under protection of Earth. Any attack will be treated as attack on us. Leave now. The Threx captain snarled, but his crew hesitated. They had not expected such quick defense. Slowly, the raider turned and slipped back into the void. Across the galaxy, reports of the event spread. Humans had acted. They had not only spoken, they had defended. On Earth, people cheered. Crowds filled squares in many cities, waving banners of Earth and of the Kara star sign. In schools, children read the story of the raider and the shield of the sentinel. They learned that humans had kept their promise. But in Threx halls, anger burned. The warlord who had pounded the stone table now raised his voice louder. They block us. They shame us. If we do nothing, others will think us weak. We will not be weak. Plans of greater raids were drawn. The Kara themselves, though grateful, grew uneasy. They were not a warrior people. They feared their homes would become battlegrounds. They gathered their children close at night. They prayed to the stars that war would not fall upon them. Yet at the same time, they found courage in the humans who stood at their side. In the following weeks, small skirmishes broke out at edges of Kara space. Human ships met rival scouts. Shots were exchanged. No colonies were struck, but the tension rose. Every star in the border seemed ready to burn. The council debated again. Some wanted to send larger fleets. Others warned of open war. Myra spoke firmly. We cannot step back now. If we step back once, the world will remember. We made our vow. We will hold it. And so fleets were sent. Convoys of human ships moved to Kara systems. They brought food, medicine, and engineers. They repaired quake damage. They strengthened defenses. Soldiers stood guard, but they also helped in fields and homes, showing they were not conquerors but allies. The sight of humans working beside Kara spread across screens. It inspired many across both species. Some Kara children began learning human words. Some human children drew pictures of Kara families. Trust was being built. Yet in the shadows, rival powers continued to plan. The Threx were not alone. Other empires watched. Some thought of joining the challenge. They feared a galaxy where humans might stand as shields for more than one people. If humans declared protection for the Kara, who might they protect next? In one council chamber of the Threx Dominion, a general spoke. We will strike larger. We will not strike the humans directly at first. We will strike where they are weakest, and see if their resolve breaks. So the stage was set. The humans had made their promise. The Kara had placed trust in that promise. The galaxy had begun to test it. On Kara set, Lian visited again with his parents. They were welcomed as honored guests. Lian walked with Kara children in the fields. They showed him their songs. He taught them human words. Their laughter rose into the sky. Captain Darren watched from the patrol ship above. He saw the children running. He remembered the boy saved by 3 aliens in the dust of Arvin. He tightened his hands behind his back. He knew storms were coming. But he also knew why he would face them. Because a promise had been made. And humanity, once it makes a promise, holds it to the end. The stars above Kara space glowed cold and distant. Fleets moved like shadows between those stars. For weeks tension had grown, with raids and skirmishes testing human resolve. Now, however, the threat was no longer small. It was large, and it was near. Reports came into Earth's council from scout ships. Enemy fleets were gathering at the edge of Kara space. Not one or two raiders this time, but many warships, heavy cruisers, carriers, and escorts. They bore the mark of the Threx dominion. It was clear this would not be a simple test. It was a challenge. Counselor Myra read the reports with steady eyes. She stood before the assembly and said, "The storm has come. This is the trial we knew would arrive. If we fail now, our word will mean nothing to the galaxy. If we stand, then no one will doubt humanity again." The council voted to send a full defense fleet. Orders spread across human space. Ships left their stations. Crews said farewell to their families. Soldiers armed themselves. Engineers loaded supplies. Pilots checked their craft. Across many human worlds, people watched their ships rise into the sky, knowing they were flying toward danger. Among them was Captain Darren aboard the Sentinel. His patrol ship had been the first to face the Threx raider weeks before. Now he would command a small squadron under a greater fleet. He looked across his bridge at the crew who had followed him through every tense moment. "This is the trial by fire," he said. "Remember why we fight. Remember who we shield." The Kara stood for one child. "We stand for them all." In Karaset, fear filled the air. The Kara elders gathered their people in meeting halls. They told them the truth: enemy fleets were coming. Yet they also told them that humans would stand with them. For a people unused to war, this brought some courage. They prepared shelters. They moved children and families into safe places. And as they worked, they sang. Their soft voices rose together, carrying across the fields. The songs were not of battle but of hope. The human fleets arrived in time. Dozens of warships took position around Karaset and other nearby colonies. They formed lines, shields ready, weapons primed. Command ships hovered above, coordinating the defense. Fighters launched in swarms, patrolling the space between the stars. On the Sentinel, Darren stood before the main screen. A warning light flashed. The Threx fleet had entered the system. Their ships appeared, massive and dark, bristling with weapons. Their engines burned red. The message came from the Threx commander. His image appeared on screens across the human fleet. He was a tall figure, armored, his voice harsh. "Humans, stand aside. The Kara belong to no one. If you resist, you will be broken. Leave, and we may let you live." Darren watched as the message played. His crew looked at him. Some showed fear. Others showed anger. Darren spoke firmly. "Reply with this: the Kara are under protection of Earth. Any attack on them is an attack on us. We do not yield." The message was sent. Silence followed. Then the Threx ships opened fire. The first wave of energy blasts streaked through space. Human shields flared bright as they absorbed the impact. The sky seemed to shake with light. Human ships fired back, beams of energy cutting across the dark. Explosions lit the void. The battle had begun. The Sentinel moved with its squadron, weaving between enemy fire. Darren gave commands with calm precision. "Shields to front. Target their escorts. Keep their fire off the colony." His crew responded quickly, hands flying over controls. The ship shook as blasts struck its shields. Warning alarms sounded. But they held. Other human ships pressed forward. Fighters darted between enemy cruisers, striking engines and weapons. Bombers dove close, releasing payloads that burst against armored hulls. The Threx fought fiercely. They were skilled, their ships powerful. But the humans fought with something more. They fought with conviction. On the ground, the Kara gathered in shelters, listening to the distant thunder of battle above. Children clung to their parents. Elders whispered songs to calm their people. Many prayed. Through hidden windows they saw flashes of light in the sky. They did not know which ships lived or which ships burned, but they knew the humans had not left them. That alone gave them hope. Hours passed. The battle raged. Losses grew on both sides. Human ships burned, but they did not break. Each time a vessel fell, others moved to fill the gap. Every commander reminded their crews of their vow. No harm to the Kara. Hold the line. On the Sentinel, a heavy blast struck, shaking the ship hard. Panels sparked. Alarms screamed. An officer cried out, shields failing on port side. Darren stood tall. Hold course. Divert power. Keep our guns firing. He knew retreat would open a path to the colony. That was not an option. In the middle of the chaos, the humans found a chance. Their sensors showed that Threx ships focused heavily on raw firepower. Their energy cores burned brighter during volleys. An engineer on a human ship discovered that those cores could be disrupted if struck at the right moment. The information spread across the fleet. Darren seized it. Target their energy bursts. Fire when they fire. Break their rhythm. The humans changed tactics. Instead of firing constantly, they waited. When a Threx ship unleashed its attack, humans answered at that exact moment, striking the vulnerable glow of the enemy core. One by one, Threx ships faltered, their weapons silenced, their shields weakened. The tide began to turn. On the ground, the Kara could hear the difference. The thunder above lessened. The flashes became fewer but brighter, each a mark of a foe defeated. They held each other, whispering that maybe the storm was passing. At last, after long hours of struggle, the Threx commander gave the order to retreat. His fleet turned, engines burning as they fled back to the dark of space. A cheer rose through the human ships. Relief washed over crews who had fought until their hands bled at the controls. The battle was not without cost. Many human ships were damaged. Some were lost. Families would mourn. Yet the colonies still stood. The Kara lived. Humanity had kept its word. On the Sentinel's bridge, silence followed the final reports. Then Darren spoke softly, "We held the line. For them. For all of us." In the shelters below, Elder Newtel walked among her people. She looked at the children who had survived another day. She whispered thanks to the humans above. Messages of victory spread across Earth. Screens in every city showed the moment the Threx fled. Crowds cheered, waved banners, sang songs of pride. Families lit candles for the fallen. And everywhere, the name of the Kara was spoken with respect. Counselor Myra addressed the galaxy. Her words were carried by waves of light to every human world. The trial by fire has passed. We did not bend. We did not flee. We stood. Let all who watch know this: humanity does not forget. We do not abandon. We do not break. Her words were strong, but her eyes carried the weight of sorrow for those lost. She promised their sacrifice would not be forgotten. And in the hearts of both humans and Kara, a bond had been sealed in fire. They had faced the storm together and endured. The galaxy now knew the truth. The humans would protect. The humans would fight. The humans would not step aside. This was only one battle, but it was enough to mark history. From a single act of kindness in the dust of Arvin to fleets clashing among the stars, A chain of events had been forged. That chain was unbreakable. The trial by fire was over, but the flames of change now burned across the galaxy. The Great Hall of Earth Council was filled with voices that echoed like rolling thunder. Leaders, officers, scientists, and ordinary citizens gathered to hear what the declaration meant in practice. At the center, the banner of Earth and the new crest of alliance with the Veras stood side by side. It was more than just cloth. It was a promise to the stars. Humanity had declared the Vera under its protection. The announcement had already shaken the galaxy. Some allies of Earth welcomed the decision, while others watched with cold silence. The Korgath called it arrogance, but they did not yet dare to test it. For the first time in many decades, humans were not speaking only for themselves. They were speaking for another species too. Tom, now older but still carrying the memory of that fire, walked through the crowd with calm steps. People recognized him instantly. Some saluted him, others gave warm smiles. He was no soldier, yet his story had carried more weight than fleets of warships. He was the living proof that compassion between species was real. The Veras stood nearby. Their tall forms shimmered under the bright lights, their skin carrying patterns that looked like flowing rivers. They were not warriors by nature, but they stood proudly now as if the shield of Earth was wrapped around them. Many still bore scars from years of being hunted. Now they were no longer prey. They were allies. The council meeting began with strong words from Commander Rena, a woman known for her discipline. She looked across the chamber and said, "When one child was saved, an entire future was changed. Humanity remembers those who protect life. We do not forget loyalty or courage. The Vera are not strangers. They are family now. And family is never left unguarded." Her words were met with thunderous applause. Tom felt his chest tighten, because he remembered the pain, the smoke, the fear, and then the arms of the Veras shielding him. He had once been a helpless child, but now his voice helped guide the future. Across the galaxy, the effects of this decision spread like ripples in a lake. The Korgath gathered fleets but hesitated to strike. They knew that humans would not sit idle. Earth had built strong defenses after centuries of struggle. To fight the Vera now meant to fight Earth's fleets, Earth's armies, Earth's relentless spirit. Other alien species began to whisper. If humanity would protect the Vera, perhaps they might protect others too. Small races, often ignored or bullied, sent secret messages asking if Earth would hear them. For the first time, humans were seen as more than survivors. They were becoming guardians. Tom traveled with Earth's delegation to the first Vera homeworld freed from fear. The planet was covered in tall crystal forests and rivers that glowed at night. For generations, the Vera had lived in hiding, never sure if raiders would burn their homes. But now banners of Earth and Vera flew together. Children of both species played in the fields, their laughter rising higher than the wind. Tom walked with a young Vera girl named Lura, who asked in her soft voice, "Why did your people protect us? You could have stayed safe and let us fight alone." Tom answered with simple words. "Because once, you protected me when you did not have to. When someone shields you in your darkest moment, you cannot forget. My people do not forget. That is why." The girl smiled, and for Tom it felt like hope taking form. Back on Earth, not everyone agreed. Some feared the cost of protecting another species. Fleets had to be expanded, supplies shared, and new borders defended. Yet every time doubt grew, the image of the Vera shielding Tom was shown again, a reminder that trust was not weakness. It was strength. The Korgath finally sent a warning. Their warlord announced, Earth has overreached. Protecting the weak will only weaken you. If you stand in our way, we will crush you. But Earth replied with calm defiance. Commander Rena spoke again before the stars. We are not weakened. We are stronger than ever, because we know what we stand for. We stand for those who cannot stand alone. If you strike at the Vera, you strike at us. And humanity does not fall. The declaration was carried across the stars. For many, it was the first time they heard humans speak not with fear or survival but with pride and certainty. The first test came when a Korgath raiding ship attacked a small Vera colony. Within hours, Earth ships appeared, faster than the raiders expected. The battle was sharp and brief. The raiders fled, leaving the Vera unharmed. For the first time in history, the Vera looked to the sky and saw protection instead of danger. Tom watched the reports, and his heart filled with something new. Not just gratitude but pride. He had once been saved, but now millions of lives were safe because Earth had chosen to act. Years passed, and the bond deepened. Human and Vera scientists worked side by side, sharing knowledge. Farmers exchanged crops, engineers built new cities, and explorers charted new stars together. Where once there had been suspicion, there was now trust. Where once there had been fear, there was now unity. Tom often spoke at schools, telling young humans and Vera about the day of the fire. He told them how in the moment of greatest fear, courage had shone brightest. He told them that strength was not only in ships and weapons but also in the choice to protect. Children listened with wide eyes, and many carried his words like seeds that would grow into something greater. One evening, Tom stood at the edge of a wide balcony on the Vera home world. He looked at the sky where stars burned like eternal fires. Beside him stood Rena, her face lined with years of command. "You changed everything," she said quietly. Tom shook his head. "The Vera did. They were the ones who acted first. I was only a child." Rena gave a rare smile. "Yes, but your story reminded humanity of what it means to be human. Sometimes a single act lights the path for many." Far above them, new fleets patrolled. Not just Earth's fleets, but joint patrols of humans and Vera. Their banners were painted side by side, a symbol carried into every dark corner of space. The galaxy had shifted. Humanity was no longer seen as only defenders of their own kind. They were protectors of those who stood with them. The Korgath still threatened, but their raids grew fewer. The cost of testing Earth was too high now. Tom knew wars would still come, challenges would still rise, but something deeper had changed. A bond of trust had been written into history. The rescue of one child had become the foundation of an alliance that reshaped the stars. And as long as humanity remembered that choice, the galaxy would never be the same again.